I'm looking to just get my finger on the truth at least once in my life. To make at least one work that has that pulse, that sort of, we talk about those moments that you look for and that you search for, and I'm just trying to find that. I'm Eric J Drummond, and I'm an oil painter that follows the sort of classical and academic tradition, expressing people, figurative work, and allegory and portraiture. When I was a kid, though, drawing was sort of like an escape. I remember going to stores with my mom and being obsessed with seeing nativity scenes and seeing like, oh, what do the figures look like and how are they posed? So it's like this weird eye or fascination with composition through people that I was already very drawn to.
Yeah, he was very, very into the old style of painting. And my father actually gave him a book of Michelangelo. And from then, he just was like a sponge. He just absorbed everything. He knew all the history. He read about it. He loved history and art history. And when he speaks, he's so good at telling you the history of each painting and what it involves and all that.
My grandparents were the ones that were the spiritual centers of the family, and my grandfather especially, he took a noticing to what I was interested in, and also I think he loved telling us stories about the Bible and, I mean, about history in general. We would get, for every story about the Bible, we would get another story about ancient Rome or Italy, or about his culture, where he came from. He noticed that I was constantly drawing, and so he said, you know, I have something to show you. And I think I was about 7 years old, and he brought his textbook on Michelangelo out from the basement cellar. I opened the book, or the cover of the book is the statue of Moses. And it's an incredibly gripping statue by Michelangelo, and especially the eyes. And I opened the book, and that was it. That was the point where life then became about art. When I was 14, he suffered a stroke, and he lost his ability to walk, to talk, to read. The hardest thing about that was watching your biggest hero be reduced to something quite frail and vulnerable. And there's so many things that I wished for him that he could have had, because his life, he really suffered being an immigrant. He came to Canada, he had nothing, and he built everything himself. I just wish that he had at least his ability to speak or his ability to read, because those are the two things that were, like, reading was his passion, it was everything for him, and that was robbed from him. And then to speak, selfishly, I wish he could speak, because when I went to Italy and I followed in his, it was almost his dream as much as my dream to go. Because he loved his culture so much and he was so proud of it. And to see what I'm doing now was, yeah, that was, to not be able to talk to him about it. That's the thing that I look back and it kills me. I still live with like so many thoughts about just God, like the conversations we could have had, you know, And maybe the irony of life is to say, you know, like, you don't get your hero during that time. You know, you have to do it yourself. Maybe I wouldn't be the person that I am if he was there, you know, a call away or anything like that. So he got to see me graduate, and he got to see me make the work that I did, which I think I'm extremely thankful for, but I just wish I could have talked to him about it. I'd give anything for that. Things call to you from beyond what you're seeing. So I wasn't born knowing, oh, I like art and or I like drawing and I like something about drawing and something about people called to me beyond what I could understand, because there's no way a kid could rationalize that or describe why they like drawing. They go and they do it. That desire when I was a kid of constantly going back to the table and sketching, coupled with great art, not only great art, but great art that's tied to my heritage as being Italian and Portuguese, it created this sort of synthesis where I could now follow a road. I fell into the peer pressure in high school, especially, of what are you going to do with art? What are you going to do with that career? How are you going to make any money? How are you going to make a living? I kind of fought it. I never stopped making art. Like, I loved drawing and painting. I didn't paint so much when I was younger, but I drew a lot.
He was a strong student, but he didn't know it. His teachers knew it. There was buzz in the school about a student that was very good at art. When he joined my class, I realized it was Eric. I was doing a trip to Italy, and Eric did not want to come. So in conversations with his mom, I said, I think it would be really, really good for him to come. And he ended up coming on the trip to Italy. And that's when I realized this is the boy that everybody's talking about. He probably didn't know that, because we were in Italy and we went to Florence. And in Florence, there was about 40 students on the trip. And some of the students started to ask me questions. I have a background in Italian literature. So they would ask me about Dante and Da Vinci and all, you know, Michelangelo, and Eric would answer. So there was a point where I just kind of pushed Eric in the front and I stepped back, and he became our personal guide on all the Rinascimento and all those artworks. He knew all about them in high school, which was very rare for a high school boy to know all about the Renaissance and all the artists of Florence. He loved it. He really shone. I think that's where he shone.
I went to the University of Guelph to study art history. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go be a prof, get my pension, teach, and then I'll be happy. And by the second year I was in university, I wasn't happy. I looked at everything that was around me and I was like, something's not right, and I keep coming back to art. So I dropped out. You have to make a decision at some point in your life where you go, what is my aim and what do I want to do? To me, what became apparent was that this isn't just my passion, it's my responsibility. Everything that I'm speaking about is integral to the development of where I'm at now. I can't speak about my painting without speaking about what influences me, and my friends are that. My family have seen me through highs and lows. My friends have seen me through highs, lows, embarrassments, like total, like everything's on the table with my friends.
You coming home with like all these like just annoyingly fashionable things.
Yeah.
The minute you showed up with like a turtleneck, we were like,
Yeah.
oh, it's
See, we're talking about the connection of culture here. Like,
I love beautiful things. That's my vice. I love beautiful things. I love beautiful clothes. I love looking nice. That's true. Yeah.
No,
Only attractive friends. Yeah.
that was it.
yeah.
No, it's right. I came back with a turtleneck, and it was like, here we go.
Oh, he's been in Europe, I guess.
How's Europe?
Yeah. No, I think like everyone has heard of like the greats of art. Like even if you don't know anything about art, like everyone's seen Leonardo da Vinci or whatever, right? But to actually, I think the biggest thing for me when I was like seeing these things when I was growing up, I was like, this is objectively amazing, but who's doing this today?
Yeah.
That was always my thing. I was like, is it still alive? Or is it like, if everyone thought this was so great, why isn't it continuing? Because contemporary art, modern art has a very different direction, right?
It's a different message too.
Yeah, it is, right? So, and that's where the history part comes in, I guess.
Different patrons too. Like different,
yeah.
What people wanted and what was in fashion and things like that. But I do agree where I think it's kind of like people saying like music is a universal truth. Like you're very hard pressed to find someone who's like, I don't like music. Or like you listen to music and it's something, or there's something about music that you can like, you tap your foot to, or even if you're not particularly enjoying, there's something about it, right? It's the same thing I think with like that type of art, or even older art to like classical antiquity, where you look at it and you go, this is objectively speaking to me, right? Yeah. And
so then you ask like, who's doing that today? And then you look around and it's like, nobody.
Basically, my life is coming to the realization of why not me? Because you guys know, like when I was in high school, I didn't really know. I liked drawing, but I never really was like, I'm gonna go be an artist. It took failures in my life, I think, to kind of realize like, no, you're supposed to go and do this. Like something's calling.
Like commit to it.
Yeah, like I was always like, well, something more practical is like studying art history at the University of Guelph, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like
you were kind of making like concessions about like, okay, well, is this realistic? Is this actually gonna like lead to a career or to like a viable lifestyle? And then, so like, what do you think was the turning point for you that like actually made you decide like, no, I'm going for it?
I think being in Guelph and not doing what I wanted to do was like I just wasn't well. It's basically, like I stopped going to class. I wasn't eating well. I was still painting and drawing. And I just remember like having a commitment of just being like, why am I not just being myself?
Yeah.
Why am I fighting who I am all the time and not just being like, you know what, like this is a part of me. Like I just need to go and do this, and I need to own that I'm doing it and not be afraid to say that I'm doing it. That's awesome. I'll take a Brunello. Thanks.
I'll take a Peely Island.
I consider myself very lucky because I've had the same kind of core of friends for quite a long time, and we're brothers, right? I wouldn't describe them anything less than that. I'm lucky that the foundation of my family is reflected in my friends, because I can see the ethics that I was grown up with and the morals and that structure that I had growing up as a child. I see it in my friends. Okay, let me know here, right?
Yep. Good. So looking good. I would just look at the ground.
Yeah.
Right? Keep your cervical spine in check. Good. Nice, and keep belly tight. Really drive through with the hips. The hips forward. Good. So you really want to step up fast, right? There you go. Perfect. I've just always thought that discipline is freedom, right?
Yeah.
And being disciplined gives you flexibility through your life.
Yeah.
Because you have control over your actions. And like, I think that's what I've seen you really take care of, like, even more so the last few years. that you're starting to notice that that discipline's been helping you, and
Yeah.
that's been really solid.
Sam's relationship with me was extremely fundamental in the sense that we're both competitive, but we both set really high standards for ourselves. We set goals for ourselves and we want to achieve them. And I had to learn to do that almost via Sam, if I'm being totally honest, because there was a lot of times in my life where I'd be down and Sam would always be there to kind of pick me up and be like, come on, like, how are we gonna get through this? Or how are we gonna change this, you know? It's important to have good friends like that where they have your back. Like if you want to think about it as well, where you have to have friends that are willing to challenge you, where they say, hey, your behavior is not okay and what you're doing right now is not okay. And Sam has been that for me. Mitch too, and Brennan. Sam got me involved in the gym and taking care of myself and my health and doing it in the right way, you know, and doing it for the right reasons. I think about all the memories of him, reading with him, looking at art with him, and all the artists that I really loved, they went to Florence and they studied in Florence. And I thought to myself, I'm like, would it be crazy if I went and studied in Florence? And that always seemed like a sort of like, in another life, in some sort of fever dream, I would go and study like the old masters did in that city. And we came back from that trip and I remember I was looking up schools and I came across the Florence Academy of Art and I was looking at their faculty and I could see Ramiro Sanchez and Daniela Estone and Simona Dolci, and I was looking at their work and I was looking at the students' work, which was really strong at that point in time. So I told my mom first because she's more emotionally sensitive to the things that I need in life. Whereas my dad, I have to have like, if I'm doing this, X, Y, and Z are the reasons, whereas I can't just say like, I feel like I need to go, you know? And so I told my mom and my mom was like, it looks amazing, because she saw the quality of the work. She's like, but if you do this, like you have to do it. Like, there's no going back. And if you're gonna do this is all on you, it's not on us.
My wife and I, we talked about it and I said, Jesus, that's gonna be quite expensive for him to go to Florence. And she said, yeah, but I really don't think he's gonna get in. So, behold, to our surprise, I think it was a week or 2 weeks later, he receives a letter that he was accepted in Florence. And we said, oh Lord, okay. So we started planning. And I said to him, I sat down with him, I'll be very honest. And I said, you sure you want to be an artist? I said, artists only make money after they pass away. You know, artists, if you look at the great artists, Van Gogh and Michelangelo and Da Vinci, I said, these people became famous after they died. He says, oh, Dad, you don't know what you're saying, you know, typical, you know, father-son type of reply. And we supported him, however. We always support whatever our children want to do, and that's no different with Eric.
I did a college portfolio class in Fanshawe for about a term, just to build up the work. And I was pretty much working full-time after that just to save some money to apply, and then I took a loan from the bank. And so all of it was on me. And I think that was a wise decision on behalf of my parents, because it's like, okay, if you're gonna commit to the dream, then you gotta go all in. I remember I didn't hear my application, like I didn't hear back from the registrar for a few months, and I was getting kind of nervous. And I think it was in like January of 2016, I heard back, I got my email, and they said that I had been accepted, and there was nobody in my house at the time that I got the email, and so I had nobody to celebrate with. And so I'm running around, and I texted a couple friends, and I said, hey, I just got accepted to the Academy of Art in Florence, and it looks like I'm leaving, you know?
Right,
cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Don't take that with you.
I was just about to leave for Florence, and Mitch, we hung out, like last time we hung out before I left, and he said, so like, what's the goal? Like, what do you want to do? I get it, like you want to go study art, you know, and it's that thing we talk about where like friends are beneficial adversaries, they challenge you, and he asked, he's like, what's the goal? Like, what are you going to do with this? And I'm like, well, this is it. Like, there's no turning back. Like, I go there, I study, I learn what I learn, and I want to make a difference with my artwork here in Canada and or wherever life takes me. And Mitch is like, you said it to me. You gotta do it now. First year was fun. It was you're there learning. You do your evening drawing, you do your art history, you do your anatomy, and then you go out because you're in Florence, right? And you enjoy the city. Second year is Daniela Astone. Daniela is a special place though because she challenged me in the way that I speak about my friends being beneficial adversaries. Daniela was the beneficial adversary.
How are you? Yeah. Good.
The Florence Academy is a very beautiful school that has kept the 19th century process of teaching how to paint from life, and is very focused on the practice. And so like the work is quite intense, and while you're working on your drawings or painting, you discover resistances of yourself too. It's not just about the technique. It's not just about how to achieve the best effect. It's basically you starting to recognize that you have resistances about certain topics in certain ways, and so like you say, why I'm not able to do that or to do this other way, and then you start to question, and everything is very related to yourself. So it's not just objective, but it start to become personal and subjective. Every mark, everything that you do on the canvas, it shows who you are. If you are a maniac of control, like, you know, if you want to control everything, if you instead you let it go, and like it says everything about your real character, you know, how you respond to life and nature. And so that's why it's great. The relationship that between a teacher and a student is becoming quite personal very quickly, because the teacher, in a way, it shows you, it tells you what are the things that you're supposed to improve, but at the same time, it recognizes what are your tendencies. It mirrors you what are those things, and you have, so basically it's becoming like almost a therapy, you know? It becomes like a therapy, because then you kind of recognize the strength, recognize the weaknesses, and so there is a lot of pathos and drama going on, because of course it's touching, you know, like open nerves. I don't know how to say that, like when it touches the nerves, you know, like you say.
That first term of second year was hell. I almost wanted to leave. Everything that I thought that I knew from first year, she basically said, dump that out. This is what I'm teaching you. And then once you get that integrated into your system, then you can reapply what you learned in first year.
No, you have to spit on the back.
No, Vero. You're fucking with me right now.
No, it's true. Actually, no, hot water. Hot water.
Daniela just threw the hammer down on me and was like, you think you know? You don't know. We just leveled up. Like we're not playing around anymore. We're learning the foundations of oil painting, a practice that is unchanged since it was conceived.
Like, I have to say that of his group, he was probably one of the most talented, and also because of that, one of the hardest to teach, because once you have a student that already has facility, it's not so easy to build up on that. There was some resistances at the beginning, but then when he actually started to trust me, then like he got the most changes, and it was very satisfying. Yeah.
2018, September 2018. No, September 2017. And through to 2018.
The typical student that goes to gym every morning.
Typical. We're tough though. Like we did tease each other, but I remember there was critiques that you weren't afraid to really, we have the expression twist the knife. Because I remember I used an example of like the one time I was painting my first grisaille, and you took my brushes from me and you said you were pissed off, you were angry with me because I was painting very thin, and you were like, okay, I don't know why you're painting so thin, and you were like, it was the end of the day too, you were agitated, you took my brushes and you were like, first you paint the shadow, and then bang, 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 all over my canvas. Then you paint the light, bang, 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 bang. Then you paint the background, bang, bang, bang. And then she just hands me my brushes, and all of the third year students were watching. And I was sitting there, like my eyes were,
You're crying.
I wanted to inside, and my soul was, and you were like, that's how you paint, okay? And then you walked away.
No, but okay, so it's not that, of course, it depends by students to student, okay? So there are students that you see the potential, but they're fragile, and you can't really push them in certain, you can push them, but softly, okay? With Eric, I knew that he had very wide shoulders, and he could have held, important critiques because he wanted to become and do better. At one point, though, it's good also to let it go. There is a moment where you have to learn how to draw and how to paint, and then other moments where you just have to and fly away and say, okay, my drawings might not be perfect, my things might not be top quality, but at least have my own characteristic, which are also my weaknesses. Because also the weaknesses of a person are making the character of that person. And so sometimes I always say this to my students, it's not that you have to fight all your life to become a perfect painter. Perfection doesn't exist. And then at one point, you do your academy, you do your training, but then at one point you let certain things to go and you accept and embrace yourself with who you are, and forgive yourself if you're not the new sergeant or the new Bouguereau, Just forgive yourself, you are who you are, and you try to do your own path.
It's gonna take 2 days to dry.
Shut up. Canadian identity. Are you a Canadian identity?
And then you get into third year, and third year you have Ramiro, and Ramiro is like your motivational and spiritual coach. He's like, yeah, what are you into? All right, let's get into that. What kind of art, within history are you into? Let's sort of push through that. And the big break in terms of work, I would say, is the self-portrait in navy blue. That was Ramiro told me, he said, when I finished that work, he said, you made a proper painting. That was the jump. That was the student work. I hit that one, and then boom, all of a sudden I think I entered a realm of making more professional work from that point onwards.
I met Eric about 4 years ago, I guess now, and Eric approached me about studio space after his return from Florence and was really interested in bringing his perspective and new learned skills to our community. So he was very open about teaching at TAP, very open to letting people into his studio, to bringing in individuals to learn about his practice. So one of those artists who is not only I'm here to work, but one of those artists that understands that he has to be here to connect and network. That technical skill set that Eric brings to the space is really important too, because it helps other artists sort of push for that high level of execution. Eric's contribution to the scene here in London is really to bring that different perspective. He brings a sort of classical approach to what art can look like, but he's thinking about it really in a contemporary way. How does he bring this sort of classical, traditional way of working and have those who are used to seeing contemporary art really understand how valid it is today, how, you're talking about the same kind of ideas, you're talking about the same kind of storytelling, right? You're using it as a medium, you're just using it in that very traditional way. And I think that's what's exciting about Eric, is he can see both the limitations and the opportunities in the medium that he's working in.
What are you trying to go for now?
I guess just going for transitions in the midtones. Yeah, mostly the torso and face.
You could probably do the hand that's holding the stick, because right now it just looks like a mitten. In this time, they would have said, okay, well, how far can we take line, right? And line does not only it doesn't end with just being a descriptor. I always see it as like it's a responsibility that if you have a skill set, you should share it and you should impart it onto young minds. And I think what's cool was the times that you've asked me to come and talk in class, like there are kids that you see that, I think about it when I was young, they're desperate to want to learn and see someone who can do it and like who has the capacity to do it and also wants to share it with them and show them like, hey, this is like, if you put like your mind to it, like it's possible, like you can go and do that.
And I'll bet you had the same experience that some kids have when they watch someone who's really good at their craft doing it. It looks like magic.
Yeah.
Like when you showed up in Florence, I know we discussed like you were aghast at just how they can do this, like, and do it so fluidly.
And it was that plus then it quickly turns from it being magic to, oh, this is accessible. And I can reach out and grab it now. Like that's the huge thing.
To a kid growing up here who has the talent, but never even considered that being an option or whatever, like to actually have someone from here who is dedicated to like growing that type of art here, that's a huge inspiration.
I think it's incumbent on an individual that if you have skills that are of benefit to yourself and to others, you have to teach it. You have to show them those skills, you have to pass them along. It's so much more rewarding when you have those interactions with students where, for instance, I had a young woman and she was very technically gifted. I could tell her, okay, I want you to block in a figure using 10 lines, and she could do it. And then I would say, okay, we're gonna break down these lines and I want you to find more of the rhythms between things. I want you to find a sense of harmony in your figure, and we'd go through the steps to try and sort of achieve that. She turned to me and she said, you're the first person that made me realize that we're not printers and we're not out here just to copy what we see. That there's this space between my eye and that figure, there's something transcendent going on there that I can try and catch it in the air at some point and put it onto the page. She said that to me, and I think it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever heard as a teacher, where someone essentially told you that she felt human making artwork, or that it was important to be human making artwork.
So being a student of Eric has been an absolute blessing, and something I've been trying to find a teacher like him for all my life, really. That might sound dramatic, but it's true. I've always wanted to learn kind of classical style of painting, especially oil painting. Also the drawing, big fan of that kind of style of work and stuff. And I just really gravitated towards how he teaches. He's very sincere. He cares about the stories you're trying to tell inside your paintings. And just even, he pushes you to like, find something in yourself to share, make it your own, make it personal. I love that because it can be very anecdotal, it can be very specific. You can be taught exactly how to do something, but that could also leave the image kind of rigid and lifeless, and he really teaches you to lean into that and embrace like your own flavor and apply it to your paintings while still applying all the knowledge he's teaching you. So I just love it. I've never seen anything like it locally, especially, and I've never found a teacher who's been that impactful on me. I've had some really strong teachers in my past for sure, but this is astounding. So I bug him all the time. When's the next class? And I don't care if he hates me saying that. I keep saying it every time I see him. As soon as we start the next class, I'm like, well, when's the next one? Because I'm going to do this one, but I want to know when the next one is. So anyway, I love him to pieces. I think it's great.
If I'm self-critiquing the way I see things, the issue becomes, I'm a very critical person. And it errs on pessimism a lot. And so I think when I look at the environment around me, I'm extremely pessimistic about not only the artwork, but about social standards, about politics, about behavior. I look around me and I get agitated and aggravated because we've become so okay with being stupid and lazy and impatient. It reflects in everything. It reflects in relationships, it reflects in work, it reflects in the quality of the products we consume. And that's become such a, like, we just accept the bare minimum with everything that's around us. And it agitates me to no end because speed has become the culture of value in today's world. How fast can you get something out, or how quick or efficient can you be? And people always ask me, well, how long does it take to make a painting? And I'm like, well, it depends on the size, obviously, but it depends on the subject matter, but it's always a couple months, right? If I'm being generous to myself, if I have the maximum amount of time to work on it, it always takes a couple months because I don't want to put something out there that isn't of good quality because it reflects me. I think those things are one and the same. If I'm a speed painter and I make hasty work just to grab a couple likes on Instagram or to get views or whatever connotates what's success in today's world, which is in large part a superficial sense, then what does that say about me? I take shortcuts? I never took shortcuts. And I'm proud of that. Like, I think in the long run, when I look back on my life and I look at the work that I did to choose to do this, to make a sacrifice, to be in this position and to say, I make the artwork I want to make with the quality I want for the right people, that's success. You want to leave something behind so that generations can look back on and ponder and muse and learn from. Like, the way I look back at Michelangelo is like, if I achieve any fraction of that sort of legacy, I would have called my life a success, because you become immortal, like your work becomes immortal. This is a career that has no guarantees whatsoever. I could be on the street in 2 years. Things could go completely wrong. I couldn't sell a painting for the rest of my life and all of a sudden I don't have any money. It's a lonely game because it's all on you. Classical painting, to be more specific in this case, because it's something that not many people resonate with anymore because it's from a bygone era, right? I have such a grip with the idea of the tortured artists. I think artists, they operate outside of societal norms, so we operate on the fringe, right? And we look in from the fringe to society, we critique it, we comment on it, and we make works of art based on those observations. But the idea of the tortured artist has become this like popular like archetype or caricature. I would use caricature. It's not an archetype, it's a caricature now that people love to adopt and almost like wear as a skin. And I have no patience for it because, again, it's just another form of like victimhood that I just don't agree with. Like, yeah, you can use the word I torture myself over my work. I'd rather not use that vocabulary because I'd rather think of it as I'm actively problem solving or I'm looking for solutions. I don't torture myself over my work. I muse on my work and I I elaborate on my work and I'm always critiquing my work and I'm never satisfied with it. And maybe that's where you could say, oh, it's like very torturous to think that you're never happy with your own work. But I think of it as a positive thing because those are my standards. So I just finished a painting entitled The Protection of Sacred Love versus Profane Love. The working process it was one of the smoothest working processes of a multi-figural composition that I've ever had, because I did this sketch and it was just going to be a Venus type sketch where I just, I was looking to recreate that sort of motif. And then the idea started elaborating as I was designing it more and more, and I think that's what often happens, is that I never just have like a full idea. I have to like put pencil to paper or charcoal to paper and like elaborate it, and then it unfolds as you're working. I think I have to be working in order for an idea to fully realize itself. It became this sort of composition that was more than just being it about love, but how love is such an elaborate and profound feeling, where love isn't just erotic or romantic or beautiful like we're often told. It's that love is, it's the quickest path to jealousy, and it can lead you to violence. It can lead you to a love of excess or a love of false love. It became a composition that was far more elaborate, which I liked, because it offered a bit of nuance where, okay, what's your idea of sacred love? And it's like, well, for me, it's a mother and a child, and a mother like holding her child closely. And it's like, okay, well, what's your idea of profane love? And my idea of profane love is what's immediately out my door, where it's like people are going out and drinking excessively and partying excessively, taking drugs and loving superficial garbage that they see in the media, right? Worshipping celebrities, all that stuff. But I can't represent that in a classical motif. So I reverted back to a sort of Dionysian figure he's spilling his gold chalice of wine, and he's got grapes and laurel leaves in his hair, and he would be a person that you would expect to be sort of a bourgeoisie ancient figure. And he's being cast out by the figure of Venus and Eros, which are the symbolic representations of divine love, with all these lilies being sort of cast down in sort of a celebratory way. It's almost like when you throw flowers at a wedding, it's the same thing, where this act of protecting the most primal and pure form of love, which is that between a mother and her child, is being celebrated.
When I see his paintings, I feel, I don't know, I'm just in awe that he can do that. And he can, I don't know how he does it. I don't know where he got all this talent. But it's just like when he did his first show, he was with other artists and they had totally different paintings and artwork. And his was what he had done in Italy. And I said, oh my God.
Art is a transcendent practice. I think it escapes any sort of confines of time, especially if I take like portrait painting an example. Portrait painting is a series of observations through time layered upon each other. Art it breaks time, right? You're transfixed into something that's neither past, present, or future. And that's why the images you make are important. But the fact that you can have universal symbols across history, and you can have motifs that get regurgitated in multiple ways as well. So like something like the Pietà or the crucifix, it's been reinterpreted countless times, but it still has the same profound effect on our being. And you can't really correlate it or rate it on a scale. Like there's nothing quantifiable about that. But there's something about seeing an image of sacrifice or suffering or love that speaks to, I don't know, it speaks to our soul, right? And then I guess the question is like, well, what's a soul? And I don't have any I don't have any quantifiable evidence for that, but I know that it exists. I feel that it exists. It's kind of like, well, what's real? Like, is a work of fiction real, right? Well, the themes of the work of fiction are real. So for instance, The Lord of the Rings, like the themes developed in The Lord of the Rings, the hero's journey or the arc of the hero, the arc of the king, what have you. Those are real in terms of they apply to every single one of us in our journey through life. So this show coming up has been a brainchild of myself, Tap, Anita Kuntz, and then we've brought in 2 other artists, Yana and Daniela. The show is about the human spirit, and it kind of found its origins. Coincidentally, I had my first solo show in 2022 here called Amacord, and I dedicated that to my grandparents. We started formulating this idea with Sandra DeSalvo here at Tap, and we started circumventing this idea around the human spirit. And she goes, well, you're starting to get into allegorical work, so this is kind of like a perfect segue. Selfishly, I get to say that I exhibited with Daniela. And she's a hero of mine, right? She's someone who's had a tremendous influence on my life, and I remember her lessons every day. And I'm humbled to be able to show work with her, almost exclusively show work with her in this context, especially in Canada. To be able to bring her to Canada too is a huge honor, and it's another way that I'm trying to show this city and this country, like, this is the standard of art we should be showing. This is what we could do if we just applied ourselves and applied this level of attention and knowledge to young artists. I want to make London more beautiful. I want to make Canada more beautiful. I want to be the artist that can do that for this country. That's always been a goal of mine since I graduated, was to give back to this country, because this country gave everything to my family.
I'm actually very happy for Eric that he left and he found his own, environment, like he found his own nest where to actually start to build up his own composition. At the end, I always say to him that being in a different place with different artists is such an enrichment. And so if he could figure out his own world, and build up his own community, it would have been great for him. Because there is always like this romantic idea of Florence, as a place where people stays well, but it's like a bubble. And if you don't expose yourself to different kind of winds, like how can your roots be stronger? How can you talk about what you really like or who you really are if you don't expose yourself to some sufferance too, So I'm happy that he decided then to not come and to stay in here. I come from a country where art is part of our identity, because basically the greatest artisan of the past were all lived in around the Mediterranean area, so from Greece to Italy, Rome, the Etruscans. So like you grew up with this idea that your ancestors were able to take soil and to produce beautiful things, beautiful colors. And I think for a human being, it's fundamental to remember that we have this power to create beauty. And I think this is very, very extremely important for our identity as a human being. So that's why art now is even more important, because people tend to not feel like that they count that much in this society, which is that every single person really has something to give. I believe that there is a huge difference living in a country that in a way helps the beauty, but not just the aesthetic beauty, but also the beauty that allows people to create, that feeling, the fact that people can actually feel like that they can create good relationship, create something from scratch, like create also, connections. That is what art's supposed to do. And also supposed to kind of put it in a position to change our security, like our ideas, our way of thinking. I think that is very positive for the growth of the human beings. Otherwise, if we all just live our life without having the questions, or like without creating, without exposing ourselves to certain things, I think it's a poor life without art. I don't know.
I think to be able to look at the world around us, right? Because we always say that the universe is within us as much as we're in the universe. To look at the world around us, to rationalize it, to abstract it, and then to create something from that abstraction into almost an organized form of poetry or beauty or truth, right? It's a form of heritage and tradition because others look on it. They receive whatever it is that you're conveying. It becomes something that's internal for you, and then through that internalization, you're therefore able to move the world.
I think it's a language, and I feel like as we're getting further and further along with technology and AI especially, and I don't want to slam anyone's thoughts or ideas on it. It's challenging to still keep true to yourself and push yourself with your own art. And I think it's so valuable because that language remains, and I just don't want it to go away. And it's so important that we keep pushing art and get more people involved. I work in computers, and I do a lot of concept art and illustration work on computers, and there's a place for it. I love it. But like getting back to the roots of like where the fundamentals of art came from, like how the classical artists learned their craft. I think that's such an important piece of history that should be continued and passed on, and I don't ever want to see that go away. So I find it's a priceless endeavor that we have to keep alive and pursue. Without it, I think it would be a pretty dull world.
In my opinion, the advantage of this type of work today is that it requires people to stop, whereas everyone today is moving at such a rapid rate. People are addicted to their phones, people have advertising and images constantly crashing. They come upon this, and it's done in today's context, and it requires them to just slow down, I think, to really ingest the work. It requires them, it demands of them to slow down. If the work that I make can help people step away from that and make them realize that there's something more than just the rat race, it's a success, in my opinion. I say this to a lot of the people that I paint, where I say there's an infinite amount of paintings in you, and I have to pick one, right? And that's a challenge, but it's also such clear evidence of us being made in God's image. The exhibition is about like the Old Testament, and like it's exhibiting with like these doors to the baptistry of Florence.
See, I never thought that was a big part of your portfolio.
Like the spiritual stuff?
Is it spiritual or religious, you would say?
I don't know, I found like spiritual in terms of like it's talking about like the human spirit.
Yeah.
But like, it's mostly like, do you want 35 as well?
Yeah, you start now, I'm just gonna roll.
I would say it's spiritual, but it's always like having to do with like how we think and feel as like human beings.
Yeah.
That's always what I'm concerned with. And I guess that's why I always draw into like portraiture, especially with the way the world is right now. Like I'm always kind of contemplating that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's not something I did think about until recently.
I was gonna say, like when we were younger, like, yeah, we went to church and stuff like that, but it was like...
But there was a while you get away from it.
Yeah.
Because I think...
I agree completely.
Like when you're a teenager and you're in your young 20s, it's not at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
on what type of character you want to have and what you want to exemplify.
Yeah. I often wonder if secular societies are capable of creating beauty, right? Without that sort of notion. You don't even necessarily have to believe in God, but even having some sort of understanding that there could be something beyond our reality, which has already been proven through quantum mechanics and physics, that there's more to our perceptions. I think if you could have a society that's more aware of that and have a sense of selflessness, that there's something bigger than ourselves, we would produce more work. I'm not saying like produce more work like me, you know, but we would produce more work that has a base of looking for something beyond just something superficial or something gimmicky or something quick, something that's just looking to grab your attention. Now, what I'm conveying in my work, it's not, I wouldn't classify it as like this is Christian work. It's maybe based in Christian values, right? Or maybe even like Neoplatonic philosophy. There's a lot going on because I draw from everything, but I always go back to my Catholic roots because I don't believe we're born with ethics and morals. I believe we're born with the necessity to survive. Our ethics and our morals come from something that's beyond us. That's how we formulate our laws. That's how we formulate our sense of what's right and wrong. I'm looking to just get my finger on the truth at least once in my life. To make at least one work that has that pulse, that sort of, we talk about those moments that you look for and that you search for. And I'm just trying to find that. So maybe I don't know everything there is about me, but I damn well know that I'm the embodiment of my family and my values. I'm my grandfather, I'm my father, I'm my mother, and I'm my grandmother. I'm everyone who came before me, just trying to do the right thing. Through my work and through the relationships that I have with the people that I love.